Hey everyone, today we want to talk about something slightly different, something maybe a little bit controversial or a little bit sensitive with a lot of new players in the game, but it's talking about how do you practice your worst heroes? How do you get better with heroes that you don't feel confident playing, or you don't feel like you can live up to the potential of helping your team to maximize their synergy and their capabilities because you're learning a hero. The game is relatively new. Everybody is relatively a new player, and I would say at least 60 to 70% of the people playing the game right now have at least one or two heroes that they maybe only have an hour or two playtime with. And so the question arises, if you want to get good with every hero, you want to have the flexibility and the versatility to be able to switch to any hero at any time, depending on your group's needs, then it means you're going to have to practice. And practicing is a tricky thing when you're trying to play with other live players. Blizzard has set up these shooting ranges and this play versus AI game mode, so people can get comfortable when they're very first starting to play a new hero and trying to learn just their basic abilities. But this video isn't really for those people. This video is for people that want to take that next step, that know that a hero's abilities, know their capabilities, but they want to learn the ins and outs of them. They want to practice against live players, and they want to do it in a way that they're going to actually get good. I mean, I honestly believe the only way you can improve in this game is to play hours and hours with a particular hero and learn exactly how they feel. I mean, it's one thing to look at a set of abilities and understand how the mechanics of those abilities to work out. It's another to have them hands-on and get that intuitive feel for when you should combo abilities and when you should use certain abilities in certain situations. That's something that you can only really practice against other players. But people, including myself, have insecurities about this. If you feel like you're in a tough, just grinded out game with another team that's of even skill level, and maybe they're all playing heroes that they're used to playing, and they're just working as a team really well, you feel funny about trying to experiment with getting good with a hero, and usually you end up switching off. And it's one thing to play in a game that is competitive, that is driven to the point that you want to win, you genuinely want to help your team out. But you don't feel like you can do that because you're playing a hero that you're still practicing, you're still learning. So one of two things can happen in this scenario. Either the other members of your team recognize that you're new with this hero and that you're not pulling your weight because you're just not used to playing him, and they'll call you out on it. And this can be a negative player experience when people start raging on you about, oh, you're not playing that hero right, or you're just not playing that hero as good as we need it right now. You get that feeling of regret, of letting your team down, and it's not fun. It really isn't fun, but I would argue this is a necessary evil to the game, that the game is still so young. People should know that people are genuinely trying to learn new heroes, and I feel like you have to be willing to switch if you absolutely positively feel like that is going to improve the gaming experience of the rest of your team. I think ultimately the compromise here has to be you need to be willing to switch if the rest of your team calls you out on it. And at the same time, the rest of your team needs to be willing to allow you a certain level of mediocrity. If you see somebody on your team that's genuinely making an effort to try to do the right thing in their particular role with a particular hero, then let that person try and learn. Even if they don't have the twitch reaction skills that you may have with that hero, or that you feel like you could do better, let it go for now. It's still an early phase of the game, so let people learn. But at the same time, if you see somebody that doesn't know how to play a hero and doesn't really look like they're making much of an effort to learn how to play that hero, they're just hurting your team for the sake of learning and nothing else, then yes, I think you should be able to feel free to call out that hero in a nice way and say, hey, be willing to switch with them. Say, hey, I can play that hero if you want. You can switch to this hero. there's a constructive way to criticize people without, trolling them or being mean to the point of wrecking their game experience, because if you do that, they're probably just going to shut down and turn off and ignore you, and you're not going to be any better off team-wise. If you ask them if they'd be willing to switch with you, or offer them advice about playing a certain hero in a certain way, then hey, maybe they do improve, maybe they do get slightly better. And really that leads into the second possible outcome of you practicing new heroes, and that is you actually surprisingly get good with them. You may have kind of a kindred feel of how this hero relates to another hero you like, and it's a similar role, but the playstyle is slightly different, and you start to get the hang of it slowly. As an example, in this game, I'm just going to come out right out and say, you've probably seen already, I'm bad with Genji. I do not have enough practice with Genji. He's a hero that I avoided. He came out later in beta, and he's just somebody that I didn't quite feel a connection to, and so I have him as my least played hero. And so I'm very, very new at learning his mechanics and his intricacies and his ins and outs. And so I make mistakes. I make a lot of bad mistakes, but a few times I actually make some okay, decent moves. I would go as far as to say that if Genji were in the hands of a better player, a much better player than me, we might have actually been able to win this game, to pull off the victory, and in the end we didn't. We came just short. So again, why this is so tough is it's hard for me to come right out and say, hey, I was okay with losing this game even though I gained a lot of practice with a hero that I needed practice with, because maybe the other members of my team didn't have as much fun because we ended up losing. But I feel like it was close enough. It was a competitive enough game. I gave just enough that my lack of skill with Genji, my lack of practice with him, didn't completely wreck the other players' experience. That they were still caught up in the moment of the game, and the competitive nature of it was still close enough and back and forth enough that I feel like I wasn't in the troll mode of playing it to the point that I was going to wreck other players' experience. I feel like I didn't come there, and if I had have been there, I would have switched off. And so I feel that, look, it's a necessary evil. It's something that you will feel slightly bad about, hopefully, but at the same time, you have to do it. It's that sticky situation that comes up in a lot of competitive games. It's the newbies versus the pros, and all that gray area in between. And the gray area is tough to reconcile a lot of times, especially in a game like this where there's many different heroes to select from and many different facets that you can learn about the game. It's a very, very deep game, but it requires people to raise their skill level in live fire environments, and so sometimes you can get some hurt feelings, but I feel like, look, use common sense. That's the bottom line to this video. If you feel like you're doing a job that is worthy of a learning experience, then your team is just going to have to suck it up and learn to live with that. If you feel like you're playing bad enough that if you were on this player's team, you would want them to switch, then you need to switch. So leave yourself open to that as well. Stay positive, guys. Have fun. Practice those heroes that you don't play a lot, and I'll see you in game.